Howdy folks, welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. I've teased you long enough. I showed you the BTSV video when I promised you I was going to do the MAUS first. But come on, the BTSV video was hilarious. How could you not love that? But you've been patient, and so here it is. Hopefully this will quieten some of you down who've been begging me to review this tank for, well, it must be a year. And it was just never going to happen on the live server, or if it wasn't going to happen for a long time. But the press account that Clan of Gamers managed to finagle for me enables me to do exactly that. Now, a couple of words of caution. I'm not a complete mouse driving noob, but, well, effectively I am. I have driven the tank before on various test servers, but the reason you haven't seen me showing you footage of driving this tank around on test servers is because on test servers there's enough gold flying around to devalue the US dollar. And this is a tank that very, very, very much lives or dies based on being able to effectively angle your armour. And when everybody is firing premium ammo, tanks that rely on armour are just completely devalued. So it was a waste of time showing you how this thing did on test servers. With the press account on the live server, however, it's a much more even playing field. So here we go. The MAUS, one of the two German Tier 10 heavy tanks, with the other, of course, being the distinctly underwhelming E100. The E100 isn't a terrible tank, but it's not very good either, and its guns are garbage. The MAUS is, well, it's kind of the same. It's not a bad tank, absolutely not. People often say there are no such things as bad tanks, there are only bad drivers. No, there are bad tanks. There really, really are bad tanks. The MAUS isn't one of them. It's very, very situational, though. I have found in my limited experience of driving this thing that this tank can be an absolute beast, or it can be the biggest piece of shit on the battlefield. And it depends entirely on which map you find yourself driving. Large, wide open maps with no cover, where you could be getting shot at from any direction, this thing just dies a very slow and painful death. On the other hand, maps, and not necessarily city maps, but city maps are great when you're driving this thing, but maps that have lots of choke points, where even if you don't know exactly where the enemy tanks are, you can stick yourself in a position where they can only fire at you from one angle. That kind of map, this tank is an absolute beast on, because it's all about the armour angling. Let's have a look at the stats. The MAUS has a couple of records in World of Tanks. First, it has the most hit points of any other vehicle in the game, 3,000. That's just absurd. That's a lot of health. It's also monstrously heavy. Even if you're driving a KV-5, you don't want to go ramming a MAUS. You will come off worse. This thing can weigh up to nearly 193 tons. So there's that. It does have a monstrously powerful engine, though, 1,750 horsepower. But don't expect this thing to have a good power-to-weight ratio, because it's got the power, but it's also got the weight. This thing is slow. It is really slow. If James May from Top Gear drove a tank, it would be this thing. You know, this is Captain Slow's tank. It can only do 20 kilometers per hour. Don't expect it to ever go over 20 kilometers per hour. And its turning speed is monstrously slow as well. Look at that, 15 degrees per second. The turret as well, only 14 degrees per second. This is not a tank that reacts well to threats emerging from unexpected directions. And that's another reason why this tank loves being located right at the end of a nice choke point, with enemy tanks being funneled in towards its front. Get around the sides and rear of this bugger, you can give him serious problems. Speaking of the armour, 200 millimeters thick. 200 millimeters thick at the front, and it's sloped back at 45 degrees. Don't even bother trying to shoot at the upper glacis of this thing. Although, having said that, there is premium ammo. Mostly we're talking about tier 10 tanks firing premium ammo that can, on a good day, get through even that amount of armour. And you should expect, even on the live server, you should expect people to be shooting premium ammunition at you. Because a lot of people will keep some premium ammo handy, just for those occasions when they run into one of these things. And don't be surprised if you start getting penetrated, and this is frustrating, because armour and hit points is all this tank has. And premium ammunition, while it's still not a guaranteed penetration, if good mouse drivers can angle this thing well enough to bounce even premium ammo being fired at them. But it just makes it harder than it should be, if you know what I'm saying. But I could talk about premium ammunition in the game all day. That's a completely different subject. It's still a good tank, and you will still bounce premium ammo fired at you in this thing if you know exactly what angle it's being fired at you from, and you can angle your armour against it. It still is very, very well armoured, even with premium ammo flying around, providing you know what direction those shots are coming from. Frontal weak spots, quite famous one, would be here. But, I mean, there are weak spots and then there are weak spots. Tier 8s are going to have problems penetrating even that. Tier 9s and 10s, not so much. But you can angle it. It is sloped back at a reasonable degree. And the optimum angle, if you can imagine you're facing, you're in a tank and this thing is pointing right towards you. You want to shoot him here. Best chance of going through. Don't waste your time shooting at the turret. Don't waste your time aiming for this tiny little periscope weak spot at the top. Plop your shots right down there. But if the mouse driver does that, you're going to start having problems. Tier 10 mediums, tank destroyers, tend to have the guns that have the accuracy and the penetration to get through that, even at that angle. And they will give you problems. But just about everything else in the game is they're just going to bounce. They're just going to bounce. They will need to start using premium ammo to penetrate a mouse, presenting that kind of angle to them. Now, the side armour of the hull is great news. It's 185mm thick, but it's also got this armoured skirt at the side, and that's fantastic news because, one, it acts as spaced armour, so shots into the side of this tank have a very, very high probability of just disappearing, of going through the spaced armour, failing to penetrate the 185mm of armour on the side, or just being eaten up by the tracks after going through the side skirts. And the side skirts also provide very, very good protection for the tank from splash damage from artillery. High explosive damage is mitigated by the amount of armour that you have. And the mouse, well, armour is one thing that the mouse is not short of. So artillery, even if it scores a direct hit, is going to do less damage to this tank than any other tank in the game. And if artillery misses, it's going to do very little damage to this tank at all because of the side skirts and the overall thickness of the armour. From the rear, the hull is actually 160mm thick. That's still bloody good. So, we're talking about the weak spots on this thing, and this tank has weak spots that most tanks, wish they had for their toughest armour. So you have to take this into perspective, but also not get too carried away, because, we're looking at tanks like, let's just pick a random example. There it is, the E50M. E50M gets a pretty good gun. 270mm of penetration. So the mouse is incredibly well armoured. But a lot of people get this thing and they think, I am invincible. I have 200mm of armour here and 240mm of armour there. There are still guns in the game that are going to go through that. You still have to learn how to angle your tank. And to be honest, if you're driving one of these things and you haven't learned how to angle your tank anyway, you deserve to lose. Getting back to the armour, The turret is monstrously well armoured. It's 240mm thick at the front, rounded, and you've got this gun mantlet covering the middle. It's just absurdly well armoured. People who fire tier 10 APCR ammo and hit the front of the turret dead on, right in the middle, can still penetrate it. But it's not something that they should count on being able to do. The side of the turret is also very, very thickly armoured, 210mm, as is the rear. This hatch in the back is a weak spot. Tanks that get around the back and can put shots into that are going to give you problems. You're going to find that the side of the tank, medium tank drivers like to drive around the side, because it's very easy to get around the side of this thing, and start putting shots into the side of the turret, and then get very, very frustrated when it just bounces and bounces and bounces and bounces. And I'll show you what I mean. Look at the angle of that side armour on the turret. And just to give you an idea of how big this bloody tank is, I'm going to show you a Type 59. Now imagine a Type 59 parked here, trying to shoot up into that turret. Where's the Type 59? There it is. Look at the size of that compared to the size of that. Try not to put yourself into that sort of situation, because if your tank is parked down here, you've got to fire up, because this is a big tank, to hit the side of the turret. And a lot of people will do that because they see this spaced armour on the side and they think, no, my shot's just going to get eaten up. And so they don't shoot into the side of the tank and they go for the turret instead, where there's no spaced armour. But look at the angle. If your gun is down here and you've got to raise your gun up, it's just going to bounce. Try to resist the urge. Almost every tank in the game is mobile enough to get around the rear of the MAUS. And certainly if you're in a medium tank and you're in brawling range, that's what you should be trying to do, rather than sitting at the side and taking potluck with a spaced armour or bounce city on the side of the turret. View range? Yeah, 400 metres. Signal range? Yeah, 720 metres. Equipment. The gun's crap. It really is crap. It's just not very good at all. And a lot of MAUS drivers will load premium ammo, APCR, for those occasions when they're shooting at something tier 10. They'll use the armour piercing on tier 9 and below, but they'll save their APCR for when they're shooting at other tier 10 heavies, for example. You're going to want a large caliber tank gun rammer because of the horribly slow rate of fire. You're going to want improved ventilation, because that extra 5% to all your crew skills improves the rate of fire and the aiming time, and improves clutch braking, improves the driver's ability to get this thing moving and turn the tank, and so on and so on. Your third choice, take your pick. I would say either enhanced gun lane drive or vertical stabilizer. Again, just to get that bloody horrible aiming time down. 2.9 seconds is not the worst aiming time in the game, but it's pretty bad. Now, crew skills. I am playing with a somewhat unfair advantage in that my crew have every single skill going. Press account, not my crew. This isn't my tank, it's not my crew. But the press accounts have every single crew skill going on every crew member. But some of these skills you're never going to use. I mean, Mentor is useless because everybody's got every skill. Firefighting, automatic fire extinguisher, don't need firefighting. Camouflage. So, yeah, you see what I'm saying here. It's certainly nice to have all of these crew skills and be able to see how they all work. I have, at some point or another on one tank or another, got pretty much every one of these skills, but not all on the same crew. So, I have definitely been taking advantage of these incredibly well-trained crews. But at the same time, I'm disadvantaged in that I haven't really driven these tanks before. So there's that. That's just something for you to bear in mind when you're watching these videos. I do have very, very well-trained crews to kind of help compensate for the fact that I've never driven these tanks before, or I've driven these tanks very, very rarely. What sort of skills should you be going for? A lot of people are going to find that they, for example, they get the Tiger 2 and then they unlock the E75 and they sell the Tiger 2 and move the crew. And then they do the same with E75. If that's the case, you're probably going to find that your tank crew are on their second or third skill anyway, and you know exactly what I'm talking about here. But if you're not doing that, if you just get the tank, buy a crew, stick them in, repairs. Just go for repairs. Repairs. You're probably going to spend quite some time with your tracks blown off in this thing because of the way you play it. You side scrape, you angle, you use the spaced armour and the tracks to eat shots that you don't want going into the front of the tank. And you are going to spend a lot of your time with your tracks blown off. It's going to happen. Artillery in particular, while they won't do they won't do a lot of damage to you if they miss, they can still blow your tracks off. And of course, you're just a big sitting target in that case. And I always recommend repair skills for heavy tank drivers. Once your repairs reach 100%, I always recommend you retrain the commander for Sixth Sense, because it's just awesome. If you've already got one full... I'm talking Brothers in Arms here, basically. Brothers in Arms requires the entire crew to have Brothers in Arms at 100% before it starts working. And then what it starts doing is basically acting like another improved ventilation. 5% to all your crew skills. So that's great. And if you're already working on your second or third crew skill, I would definitely recommend, it's never a bad idea, if you can get Brothers in Arms on your whole crew, to get Brothers in Arms on your whole crew. Beyond that, for the gunner, well, certainly you want repairs first. And then snapshot is not a terrible idea to improve accuracy during turret rotation, because this thing turns so bloody slowly. You start getting flanked by something, you're going to wish you had snapshot. Snapshot. The driver, again, I would go for repairs first. For the second skill, you're going to want both off-road driving and, what's the other one? Smooth ride. Just because this thing's mobility is so bad and the aiming time and accuracy of the gun isn't great either. Radio operator, yeah, who cares? Situational awareness to extend his view range, maybe. But repairs definitely for your first skill. Same with the loaders. Repairs. And then as soon as one of them reaches 100% repairs, swap that for safe stowage, because that's awesome. And that just about covers equipment setup and crew skills. Enough talk. Let's see how this thing plays. So here's my first game in the MAUS, and it was an utter disaster for a number of reasons. One, it's Redshire. It's a wide open map, and this is not a tank that likes driving around in wide open maps. Also, it was the first game in the MAUS. Well, that's not strictly true. I've played the MAUS on the test servers before, so I have an idea of how to drive it, but I certainly don't have the experience of you know, veteran MAUS drivers out there. The second problem was, well, there's artillery. Killed my radio operator. I can see a T69 there. Look at this E100. He dies in 2 hits. He doesn't pack a fire extinguisher. What kind of idiot drives an E100, a tier 10 heavy tank, and doesn't have a fire extinguisher? So he's dead in 2 hits. That Panther 2 is doomed. He's only a tier 8 medium. And I am now stuck. Completely stuck. I can't leave the cover of this rock anymore, which is keeping me shielded mostly from artillery. But there are tier 10 medium tanks on that ridge line. And this is the problem that you face when you're driving a MAUS. Well, there are tier 10 and tier 9 medium tanks on that ridge line. There's the E50, there's a T69 up there as well. There's somebody else shooting at me, plus the artillery. Now, if you know exactly what direction you're being shot at from, as you can see, you can angle reasonably well. and I could have weathered a lot of these shots. I'll make some horrific noob mistakes later on. But for the moment, I know that I'm being shot at by an E50M up there and a T69 up there. Something else is shooting at me from over here, but here's the problem. Well, there are two problems. Angling your armour relies on you knowing what angle you're being shot at from. And if I were to angle my armour against the E50 up there, whatever's shooting at me from over here gets shots at my lower glacis. And right there, that's the other problem. Tier 10 medium tanks in particular, and a few of the Tier 10 heavies, certainly the tank destroyers, have the accuracy and the penetration, even at that kind of range, and that's 400 metres away, to hit and penetrate that lower glacis. Unless you can angle it effectively. And if you don't know exactly which angles they're shooting you from, you can't angle it effectively. That T50-2 driver, by the way, deserves a medal. He's basically the guy who killed me. And this is how he does it. This is where I make the idiot mistake of turning my turret around. And now, well, they're going to punch me for it. And they immediately, and it's almost as if it's entirely possible that either this T50-2 driver was doing this on purpose just to give them shots. See how stupid this MAUS driver is. See if he turns his turret around. And yep, I went ahead and did it. And look at the damage I take every single time I turn that turret. And I shouldn't be doing it. I mean, how's a T50-2 going to hurt me in this tank? Well, he isn't. But the guy's on that ridge line. And look at the amount of fire he's got. And what finishes me off, the E50M, even at 400 metres range, even angled, he can put a shot through that lower glacis. And admittedly, it's not angled as well as it should be, but if I turn it to angle it against the E50, and there it goes right in, somebody else gets a good shot at it. So there wasn't a lot I could do in that situation. There were things I could have done better. The majority of the damage I took there was because I turned the turret around to try and shoot this T50-2, and you should never ever do that. I mean, I knew that the majority of the fire was coming from the front, sort of in this sort of angle there, and I could have definitely, no question about it, extended my life by just ignoring that little bastard. Because what damage is he going to do to me? Nothing. And every time I turned the turret to try and point the gun at him, everybody on that ridgeline just took advantage of it, and that's what killed me. But the MAUS does not do well on maps like this. The MAUS needs to know precisely from what angle incoming fire is hitting you. And the on-screen indicator helps with that. But on wide open maps like this, see, if you're driving down a city street, there's really only one direction, or two directions, if you're really unlucky, behind you as well as in front of you, that fire can be coming from. So it's easy to angle your armour, even if you don't know that there's something at the end of that street. When you're on a wide open map like this, driving one of these tanks, people can be shooting at you from any bloody angle, and you don't know about it until they hit you. And so it's very, very difficult to angle your armour effectively against them, particularly because you're a Tier 10 heavy, and Tier 10 mediums, and tank destroyers in particular, they have guns that are more than good enough to penetrate and hit your weak spots, even at that sort of range. So, my second game on this account, and it's a better map for it, if I can get into the town in time. But look at all the artillery. 10 artillery in this game. And no, I can't get into the town in time. It's just too slow. And this bloody gun is horribly inaccurate. Well, it's not that bad, but 0.38 accuracy just is not good. And now I'm spotted, and I've got a T110E5 and a Conqueror on my flank. And I know artillery's going to be watching, so what can I do? If I drive across that patch of open ground there, I'll get hammered in the flank, and oh yeah, they're paying attention. They know I'm here. So, alright then. Change of plan. Let's go after them. Got T110E5 moving in there as well. And this isn't how I planned this game to play out, but, you know, needs must when the devil drives and all that. I'm going to have to go after these two. Or I'm never going to survive. Well, I might survive it, but I know artillery's waiting for me to cross that open ground. And I know these guys are waiting for me to cross that open ground, so hey, let's not cross that open ground. And there's a hit from the Conqueror, just does no damage, just hits my tracks. Now, not expecting any tank destroyers on that ridge line. Let's remove some of the cover. Well, there are no tank destroyers on their team. I'm not expecting anybody to be camping that ridge line, not these kind of tanks. And T110E5. Yeah, I don't want to be playing. I'm anticipating taking a hit here when I come around the corner. And I don't really care. And the Conqueror takes too long aiming, and again, my track's even. I managed to angle, and I don't take any damage. So that T110E5's feeling very, very sorry for himself. Unfortunately, I want to force this Conqueror to back off. But he's sitting there waiting to take the shot, and he might get one into me. He does. And he sets me on fire. Crap. He basically waited for exactly the right moment. Well, he waited for me to come around and, yeah, hit the lower glaciers. And that's interesting. That's actually really, really interesting. I'm just going to rewind this. Because the hit decal markers aren't 100% accurate. So that one looks like it penetrated my upper glacis. And it might have, but it could have equally indicated that it hit the lower glacis. And I would expect a Conqueror, with the big gun on the Conqueror, to be able to get through that. And the Conqueror driver did the right thing. He waited for me to straighten out as I was coming around the side here, and then he put one, you know, right through where he's most likely to penetrate. But that second shot, that was interesting. I would expect him to be reloading and aiming for the side of the turret here. There we go, kill the T110E5. And the next shot, he's firing gold. Yeah, he's firing gold. Let me just pause that and have a look. Yeah, you are not getting through the upper glacis of a MAUS from the front unless you're firing gold ammo. But you need to expect that when you're driving one of these tanks. You absolutely 100% need to expect people to see you coming and think, right, where's those premium shells that I saved just for this occasion? Because it's going to happen. And that's where, there we go, I'm angled now. Oh, can I ram him? Can I ram him? It's not going to happen, is it? But that's where the health pool comes in. Taking shots from that side, probably artillery. Come on, die, will you? Conqueror did what he could. I mean, he saw there was a T110E5 and a MAUS coming for him, so he focused on... I'm surprised he didn't focus on the T110E5. Easier to kill. But he circled me like a pro. He did what he could. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, not with the two of us facing him. And my 3,000 hit point health pool allowed me to soak up the damage that he was very, very easily capable of doing in a tanker's. Well, the Conqueror's not the most mobile heavy tank in the game, but it's not particularly slow, and I'm driving a MAUS, so yeah. So he did about the best he could be expected to do, I should say. Got around the side, put the shots into the side of my tank, and the only thing that kept me alive was just being able to eat the damage by having 3,000 health. So my second game in the MAUS, and it wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't particularly good. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Artie's been spotted. T110E5 and our artillery are going to have fun with them, and I'm just too slow. I'm just too slow to get anywhere near these guys. So that was my contribution to that game, and it wasn't bad. But again, I haven't really had the opportunity to put this thing through its paces in the sort of environment where it shines. Right then, Fishing Bay. This is more like it. There are only 5 tier 10s on each team. The artillery isn't completely out of control, and we've actually managed to kill one of them already. And there's a town for me to get stuck into and start using the armour of this thing properly, and side scraping and all that sort of good stuff. So let's see if I can do any better and use this thing properly. Okay, there's an M103, and I haven't spotted it yet, but now I have Object 268. Whoa! And I'm angled quite well against the Object 268. And he bounces. It's a tier 10 tank destroyer, very accurate, very good penetration on the gun. Tries to put one, there we go, just bounces off the turret front. There we go. Good damage on this gun, just a monstrously slow rate of fire, and I have switched to premium ammunition because the front of the Object 268 is incredibly bouncy. Certainly seemed to be the case when I was driving the little bugger on the test server. I'm going for a bit of side scraping here. What I'm doing here is I'm only showing my side, and I'm not very good at doing it. It's not a technique I use very often. I don't really have the tanks that require you to do it, but I'm going to have to get used to doing it when I start driving the 4502P Model B. Let's have another go. Concerned about that Object 268, but he seems to have backed off. Yep, he's disappeared. So, and this is side scraping here. See what I'm doing? Right, pause it there. That's allowing me to point the gun down the road while keeping my weak spots covered up. Any shots into the side are just going to bounce off, the front is angled, and that vulnerable lower glacis is covered up. So that's, in a nutshell, that is side scraping. Only works if you know where the enemy guns are, however. And that's why I took so long getting into this position on that corner, because I didn't know whether or not that 268 was still there. But there you go. And there doesn't seem to be anything down there. There's a T110E5 with that M103. Alright, E75's going for it, 113's going for it, I'd better go for it. Of course, the problem in the MAUS is when you go for it, you don't go for it very quickly. Oh, there's that 268. And even a PCR hit the wrong angle will bounce. And I didn't need to angle that much in return. So I only turned the hull of the tank slightly. Very low damage run. And I don't want to give him a flat shot at this lower glacis, and that's all it takes. Shot went high. Bloody awful accuracy on this 128mm gun. And again, this guy's basically keeping me tied down. Right, cool, thank you. Object 268 kills him. And then I take a hit from artillery, of course, and there, look at that, 828 damage. The cavalry has arrived. These guys are stuffed down. Don't even worry about the T110. M103 bounces. Bang. 2 kills. Oh no, 1 kill. I didn't kill the 268. Never mind. Now, 828 damage in an artillery hit. A lesser tank, that would have been a 1500 damage hit. But the amount of armour that you have mitigates the amount of damage that you take from artillery. But the thing is, I mean, the MAUS has 3000 health. Oh, even if that hadn't, even if that had done 1500 damage, plenty more where that one came from. Spotted, not sure who by. It wasn't the Yag Tiger. He's got a solid rock between me and him. 268 nails him. All we have left now is 2 artillery. It must have been artillery who saw me. Oh, there's one. Gonna have you. I'm so gonna have you. See, I'm allowed to kill artillery. This isn't my account. Oh, am I gonna get another one? 2 scumbags. Oh yeah. That's it, I can sell the tank now. I've killed 2 artillery. I don't need to play it anymore. But you can see that in this sort of environment, narrow, tight city streets, even with an Object 268 shooting at you, I didn't take a single point of damage from anything other than artillery in this game. And artillery only hit me once. So I bounced every single shot that Object 268, the Tier 10 tank destroyer, bounced every single shot he fired. Now, this is useful. We don't know where that AMX is, but I know I've just been spotted. So he's got to be nearby somewhere. You saw the old light bulb flash up. There's only 1 tank left on the enemy team. He's hiding somewhere. He's got to be within 400 meters at the most. Where is the little bastard? Come on, Frenchie. Uncle Fritz ain't gonna hurt you. And I've been spotted again. Where the hell is he? He's got to be up there somewhere, hiding in the bush. Maybe up here? There he is. Oh, it's only a 1375. Poor little bugger. It looks like he's just given up. Yep. And there we go. So, yeah, not bad. So, that's how that one panned out. And 42,400 credits is not bad. I didn't do a massive amount of damage in that game, though. But still, 42,000, 3 kills, 2 of them were artillery. Just one-shot kills, easy. And didn't do the best. That award definitely went to that Panther 2 who played a blinding game. But if you're playing a Tier 8 in a Tier 10 match, you're going to get a lot more experience for the damage that you do compared to the damage that the Tier 10s do. Because you're Tier 8, you do get that experience modifier. So there is that, but, you know, well played to him anyway. And, yeah, that didn't really test the tank much at all. Potential damage received was on the low side. And even if that Object 268 and M103 had penetrated and damaged with every shot that they fired, I would have still survived the game with 600 health left. That's just how much health the MAUS has. Now I just want to make a couple of points about premium ammunition here. You can see that yes, that was a reasonably good game in the MAUS, and I did actually make a profit, which is very unusual when you're driving a Tier 10 machine. You need to usually have a very, very good game to run a profit on these things. However, I used quite a bit of premium ammunition in that match, and I'm paying to resupply it with gold, not credits. If it was the other way around and I was paying credits to restock that APCR ammo, I probably wouldn't have made a profit, so there's that. The second point I wanted to make about premium ammo is it's very, very hypocritical to sit here when you're driving a MAUS saying, oh, people firing premium ammo at you in this thing makes your armour irrelevant. Well, it's not, for a couple of reasons. First, it's wrong. You can still, as long as you know where you're being shot at from, you can still beat premium ammo by angling this thing. The armour is that good. And secondly, it's hypocritical, because a lot of MAUS drivers will carry premium ammo themselves, because their gun is shit. In fact, it's probably safe to say that with one exception, it's the worst gun on any Tier 10 heavy tank, and the only gun that it's better than is that piece of crap 150mm gun on the E100. It has worse penetration, other than that gun, than every other Tier 10 heavy tank. And so a lot of MAUS drivers will pack premium ammo on this thing. So you can't be driving around in a tank with firing premium ammo at other people, complaining about them firing premium ammo at you. Especially since with a bit of intelligence you can still beat their premium ammo just by driving the tank properly. But we're not done yet. let's have another go. Now, a map like Cliff is, well, it's definitely not a city map, but it does have those kind of choke points that mouse drivers love exploiting. Now, there are a lot of tank destroyers on the enemy team, but only one of them's tier 9. It looks like they've got an AMX-50 Foch. Now, the AMX-50 Foch's gun has, I think, 232mm of penetration. Is that right? I'll confirm this. But this is just such an ideal matchup for the mouse. There are only 5 tier 10 tanks. They have a lot of tank destroyers, but most of them are tier 8. And tier 8 machines have serious problems dealing with MAUSes from anything other than the side or rear. So driving this thing in this sort of game is kind of like driving a Churchill Mark III, the Russian premium Churchill, in a tier 5 maximum game. Just keep rolling. And there's a tree falling, and I'll take the shot. And I probably shouldn't have. Although I can't hit either of those two from here yet, anyway. Now, how stupid is this Yak Panther? Yeah, he's going to be stupid. Oh man, look at that. And bounce. Yeah, with this kind of angling, in fact even without this kind of angling, I do not fear the Yak Panther 2's gun driving this tank. Sayonara, sucker. He went for the T-34 rather than me. But, big heavy tank, lots of armour, got to keep going. Team are relying on me. Go on, finish him off, fellas. No, come on. Do I have to do everything? No, I don't. There we go, T-34 gets the killing blow. Good stuff. And keep moving. Yak Panther 2 hits me on the side, it's angled. He is so stuffed. Yeah, took his tracks off, finish him off, fellas. GW Panther hits me, does 41 damage. Yak Panther 2 hits me, knocks my tracks off. And right there, I don't know if you can see it in the middle of the screen, in fact I'll rewind it, because a lot of people are asking what the Eagle Eye skill does. So let me just give you a quick example. When you have your cursor pointed over an enemy tank, if they have taken critical damage, after a couple of seconds, there we go. Not going to get to finish him off, he's going to burn to death. Oh, I am. And you can see right there, it tells me he has a damaged engine, he has a dead driver, and he has a damaged fuel tank. So that's the Eagle Eye perk for your commander. This one was a bit of a smash and grab as well. This enemy team just weren't very good. So I'm leaving the faster tanks to go after... There they are. I knew there was going to be artillery hiding up here. I'm leaving these guys to go after them. Driving the mouse, because it's so slow, you really need to know where you're going. And, oh, I can get a scumbag. Yes! I racked him. Not that I needed to. Oh! Yak Panther 2. What on earth is a Yak Panther 2 doing over there? Well, he, again, at this range, he's never, ever going to penetrate me. I think I just hit his tracks. I did penetrate. Oh, he's turned sideways on, but he's stuffed. Doesn't matter which way he turns, somebody's going to get a flanking shot at him. But hopefully you can see how situational the mouse is. Can I get the kill? Nah, I was wrong. It's a good tank. It's not a great tank. Well, that's not strictly true. The map that you're on determines whether or not this is a pile of shit or an amazing machine. Maps that have choke points, mouse drivers rub their hands in glee every time they find themselves on a map that has a lot of choke points. Wide open maps, Steppes, Malinovka, Prokhorovka. Absolutely horrible maps to be driving this tank on. You need to either know exactly from which angle you're going to get shot at, or if you don't know, you need to be able to... What's the right way of putting it? If you don't know where the enemy tanks are, you need to be in a position where they can only fire at you from certain limited angles. So you're looking at maps that have lots of choke points. That's what you want. Wide open maps where you can be shot at from every direction are mouse drivers' bloody nightmares. And this one's all over. I mean, poor guy in the WZ131 doesn't stand a chance. Is he going to survive before we cap? Is he going to get away with it? Is he going to stay hidden? Don't fancy his chances. Everybody's taking pot shots at the top of that hill just on the off chance he drives into our shells. He might get away with it. I kind of hope so. I can't actually remember how this one ended, but there we go. 41 damage taken, and that was artillery splash damage. And the side skirts and the heavy armour on this tank really, unless artillery hits you with a direct hit, this tank takes very, very little damage from artillery. And even if artillery hits you with a direct hit, it's got so much armour it mitigates a lot of the damage that artillery does. And there you go. A good game. Not as profitable as the previous game on Fishing Bay, but still, well, you know, only just over 1100 XP, undoubled. Premium account, obviously. And there you go. The top four on the team. Artillery, myself, Object 268, and that WZ120 driver, all having really good games. Personal stats. There you go. 10 fired, 9 hits, 7 penetrations, nearly 3000 damage done and received. So, you know, and ran a profit, which you can expect to do in a tier 10 machine. Tier 10 machines don't usually make a lot of money. And what you tend to find is the tier 10 machines that have the rapid firing guns are the ones that cost you the most to run because the cost of the ammo is so prohibitive. The MAUS has a very, very slow firing gun, and it does a lot of damage when it actually hits, penetrates, and damages with that gun. So the MAUS isn't that expensive to maintain. One surprising thing, though, it cost me 9,000 credits to repair this tank and I only took 45 points of damage. But the tracks of the MAUS have such massive health pools. Both of my tracks were damaged. And one thing that a lot of people forget is that when you're repairing the tank afterwards, you're not just repairing the hit point damage that the tank's taken, you're also repairing the module damage. So, and I'm not complaining about this is a good thing. It is difficult to blow the tracks off the MAUS because they have so much health. But when you finish a game like that, where even though I only took 45 damage, the tracks were still in rag order, even though they hadn't been blown off, they'd taken a lot of damage. So that 9,000 credit repair bill is basically just to get my tracks back in, full working condition. But even so, I think the MAUS is probably one of the more profitable tier 10 tanks if you have a decent game. Obviously, if you get the thing destroyed, it's going to cost you a fortune to repair it. But because the gun just fires so bloody slowly, your ammo resupply costs, which usually make up the bulk of the cost of running a tier 10 tank, are actually quite low. Unless, of course, you're spending a lot of premium ammunition. So, the MAUS. I was expecting to hate it, and I didn't hate it. I actually had quite a bit of fun driving this thing, and totally did not expect to. But it's definitely true. Certainly in my experience, your mileage may vary, but it does seem to me that this tank can be either fantastic or complete garbage, and that depends entirely on which map you end up playing this tank on. You get yourself into a wide open map like Steppes, and this thing is crap. It's just a massive target. You can't hide it anywhere, you can't angle it effectively because you're getting shot at from multiple directions and you just fail horribly and die. You get this thing into city maps in particular, but any kind of map where you can stick this thing at one end of a choke point and just bounce shots like a boss. And this is an incredibly good tank to play. It's also probably fairly safe to say that the fewer other tier 10 tanks on your team, the better this thing does. And you could say that of any tank, any tier 10 tank. obviously. But this thing in particular, purely because of the amount of penetration and accuracy that other tier 10 tanks have, that this thing doesn't have. And those are the kind of tanks that are going to give you the most problems penetrating your weak spots. Tier 9s and 8s, not so much. So in that respect, this is kind of a highly specialised bully tank that just loves stomping tanks lower tier than it. But you're kind of forced into that role because of the crappy gun, unless you're prepared to spend money on gold ammo. But get this thing stuck at one end of a choke point, or the kind of situation where you know what angle you're going to be taking fire from, and this tank is amazing. And I've had a lot of fun driving it. So, am I going to be getting one of these? Probably not. It's too much. It's too much effort to go to get a tank. I mean, looking at where I am in my World of Tanks account, I've got the Tiger P, so I still need to get the 4502A, the 4502P, and then the MAUS. It's going to take months, and then I'd end up with a tank that isn't really my style of tank anyway. And there's other things that I want to do with my free XP, for example, like, try the Chinese out, because I'm having so much fun with the Type 62 and the Type 59. I figure, hey, why not? British tank destroyers, I'm playing as well, British mediums and so on and so on. But on the other hand, if you are going down the German heavy tank line and you're thinking of which way you want to split, do you want to go down the Henschel Tiger line or do you want to go down the Porsche Tiger line? Well, there it is, the MAUS. I've told you what I think of it. Do you think you'll like the look of it? You be the judge. As always, folks, take care on that battlefield. I'll catch you next time.